Welcome to ACO. We will have a look at some of the key functionality and then do some research. We can begin with a search. In the search box, we enter David Bowie, and as I type, the actual search happens in the background. You're presented with a list of artists, albums, and singles with that search term. So if we select the artist, we can now click Search and go to the David Bowie page. On this page, you see that there are charts presented from the UK, the US, Germany, Canada, and Spain. There are also links to journals from Cambridge University Press, Taylor and Francis, and Wiley, who publish the IASPM Journal of Popular Music Studies, as well as databases like RILM and ROC's backpages. These links will take you to those resources if your library is already a subscriber, and you will see the entries pre-searched for the artist. This is a listing in the UK of all the albums which charted, and by clicking on that country name, you can select one of the others like Germany, Canada, US, and so on. You can also change the format between album and single. The top 3 of any chart are already selected in the graph above, so if you click to pull it down, you will see them displayed as a time series. As you hover over the relative pitch graph, you can see the album, the date, and the position as you move along the graph. So here you have Ziggy Stardust, which first charted in the early 70s and is still in the charts in 2012. You can enlarge a section of the graph by selecting it. If you zoom in further, you can see that this is Man Who Sold the World, which didn't get quite as high as Space Oddity or Ziggy. We can now do some chart research. Let's say that we want to deselect the defaults and have a look at the 3 Berlin albums, the Berlin Trilogy, made with Brian Eno in the late 1970s. The first of these was Low, the second was Heroes, and the third, Lodger. Low came out on the 27th of January 1977 and entered the charts, Heroes in October 77, and Lodger a few years later in June of 1979. By selecting them, they appear in the graph, and you can see that 2 of them appear in the charts 10 years later in 1998, Heroes and Low, which recharted. You can enlarge this area to have a look and see that the graphs are slightly different. Now let's do some detailed research. We're looking at them in relative time, but if you toggle with this button, you can see them in absolute time. This shows them from the day they first charted, and the fascinating insight is that for the first 7 weeks, they moved perfectly in parallel, indicating that the same fans were buying them. But in 8 weeks, Heroes fell below the others. Why did this happen? Let's look for the competition for Heroes when it charted. If you move along to see the chart on the day it first charted, you get a list of all the albums that were popular at that time. At the top was Diana Ross and the Supremes. As you scroll down the list, you see Heroes already pre-selected, and you can hear sound samples of all of these. To analyze them, you can see that Rolling Stones with Love You Live was just above David Bowie, and thus continue your research into these albums with the analytical tools of ACO.